unnecessary intro song to totally waste your time.
Does victimhood exist? Have you ever been a victim? Or is that just something that weak people say? Oh, I'm a victim. Victimhood. I love being a victim. You think this is an easy question to ask, but I've been in this conversation with an old bandmate of mine who, with whom I align mostly on everything, libertarian-wise, You're responsible for your own life. Don't complain about others. These are all valid things. It started when you posted a meme saying that none of your problems are because somebody else is a billionaire. And I said, well, not so fast. Some of my problems, some of my neighbors' problems are because George Soros has billions of dollars to spend on evil projects, such as filling the streets with crime. That's my problem. Does it mean that George Soros should not have billions of dollars? I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe I could steal that money from him or drain his accounts, and he no longer becomes a problem for me and my neighbors. The bigger question is, should anyone have $1 billion? Well, of course. Some people should have $1 trillion. So the question isn't the money, it's who has it and what they're doing with it. But simply saying, oh, it's not because he's a billionaire. Well, it is because he's a billionaire. Because if he wasn't a billionaire, he wouldn't have the resources to be my problem. It's like, I use the example, if somebody surprises me while I'm in the shower with a gun pointed at my face, my enemy, it's like, yeah, guns don't kill people, people kill people. There's no reason to say that guns shouldn't exist, but in that moment, the gun is my problem. If I can deal with the gun and take the gun away from that person, I can probably, wrestle from the ground with my naked, slippery body. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is slogans are fun, and they serve a function, a motivational function. None of your problems are because somebody else is a billionaire. Oh, I get it. Cool. That's motivational. But it's not true. It's not true. And I don't like to just adopt in non-true things. I don't find non-true things to be very helpful. I think it's more true or more helpful to acknowledge the reality, and then that way you can deal with it. Should I be focused on George Soros and draining his account? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe that's a life mission. Maybe if you're trying to sit around and go, what should I do today? I wonder if I could drain George Soros' account. If you have the means to do it, why not? I talk about this a lot. It gets redundant, but guess what? I also eat every day and poop every day. Sometimes you got to do things all the time. That's just part of life. you know? It's not a big deal to talk about and think about the same things every day. But really, yeah, it comes down to, I used a bunch of different examples. If somebody commits a violent act against you or rapes you or your loved one, it's your responsibility to stop them so they don't do it to somebody else. And it doesn't matter what the tools are. But that's what I don't like about that statement. The statement that none of your problems are because somebody else is a billionaire, it attempts to say that money doesn't have power, or that it's not related to power, and that power is not something that needs to be dealt with. Like a gun. Guns are powerful. In other words, if you say those kinds of statements that are dismissive of it, it's almost like saying you don't need any money and you don't need a gun. But I say you do need money and you do need a gun. You should acquire power for yourself so that you can become an asset, not only to yourself, but to your loved ones and your neighbors. If you simply let somebody else amass a bunch of power and you don't do anything to mitigate it, you're not part of nature mitigating that, how is that moral? How is it moral to allow someone else who might not be a good person to amass too much power? You got to keep that stuff in check. It's like, it's the old free market question. Ayn Rand might say that the ultimate monopoly is moral because the people allowed it. Because if one company gets bigger and bigger and keeps buying up the competition, it should be allowed because might makes right, and that's nature. That any kind of market control, including antitrust laws, are immoral, no altruism. But is it even altruism when you hunt down your perpetrator and deal with them? There's this mentality that I like it. I want my coach to say, "You're not a victim," even as I lay there with a black eye after having been sucker punched. This happened to me. I don't know if you've ever been sucker punched, but I've been sucker punched on the street. Not on the street, but in a bar. Didn't see it coming. Boom. Laid me out flat. I was sucker punched by a criminal. Broke my skull. I was robbed at gunpoint and pistol whipped in Oakland, And so in those situations, I was a victim. Did you hear what I said? I was a victim. Saying I wasn't a victim doesn't change the fact that I was a victim. In fact, it steps into this fantasy world where there is no victimhood. You shouldn't have been in the neighborhood. Or it's smart to rewind the tape and go, what could I have done to not have been a victim? How could I have changed the scenario? Well, I could have avoided it. I could have been more aware. I could have seen it coming. I could have had eyeballs, implanted on the back of my head. I could have done that. Why didn't you do that, Merkley? You don't have eyeballs on the back of your head? What the fuck's wrong with you? Victim. What a pussy. Victim blaming. There's all these things in language, and it's weird that people feel like they have to take a position, and sometimes in that extreme position, it's like they have to deny that the other position even exists. And I don't think that's helpful. I think acknowledging reality, embracing reality, is really the only way to deal with reality. You know, fantasies be damned. Fun stuff, but come on. So yeah, I was a victim. And when you become a victim, you can learn how to deal with that. Maybe not be a victim next time, and maybe save somebody else from being a victim. You know, maybe instead of just going, hey, George Soros can do whatever he wants with his money. Can he? Can he? It's like saying, you know, somebody can do whatever they want to with their gun. No, they can't. They can have the gun. They can be a billionaire. But that doesn't mean it's none of my business what they do with it. It is my business. It is my business. It's your business. It's your business when people become evil. You know? You can't just retreat and run away. You know, and that's, again, a lot of this mentality of certain libertarians or whatever is to just, well, it's your fault. You shouldn't be in Oakland. You shouldn't be in San Francisco. That's what you signed up for, buddy. Really? No, it's not. I signed up for freedom. I signed up, when I came to this planet, when I signed the contract with God to be born, I signed a contract to live free no matter where I want to. You know? If I want to go to Oakland, I want to be able to go to Oakland. And if it's a shitty place, it's my responsibility to make it less shitty. Not just simply run away to some peaceful, hidden cabin on the top of a mountain where nobody even wants to go anywhere. Anyway, I mean, you know, the putting on the blinders, the plugging of ears, there are no victims, no, blah. It's not true. Evil happens, you have to acknowledge it, and you have to get the upper hand. And the only way you can get the upper hand is by acknowledging that it exists. We fight evil people with guns by getting guns. You know, we mitigate evil billionaires by becoming billionaires and using that money for good. So no, none of your problems are because someone else is a billionaire. It's just not true. It's like a queen bee saying to her drones, none of your problems are because someone else is a bear. What? Let me think about that. So bears aren't a problem? So what am I building this hive for? What are we hiding for? Why aren't we just doing this out in the open? You know, bears are a problem for bees. So are wasps. You know, none of your problems are because someone else is a wasp. Squirrel, none of your problems are because someone else is a hawk. What? So I don't need to keep my eye on the hawk anymore? I don't need to listen for the screeches? Yeah, and tell your pigeon friends too. It's irrational for them to scatter when the hawk flies by. Okay. This doesn't seem like good advice, by the way. Queen bee or king pigeon, you know. The hawk is my enemy, said the pigeon. That's a rational thought for a pigeon, you know. And thank goodness, this is why I hang out with critters, is because you don't hear them saying stupid shit, you know. And I'm not saying, again, in the motivational sphere, I get what the meme is supposed to say. The meme is, but it's a sleight of hand trick. You know, it's saying, focus on you, buddy. Okay. Okay. But where do the firemen fit in? Don't focus on the fire, focus on you. Oh, so just let the fire burn? Yeah, it's houses, it's their fault. Fire's gonna do what fire's gonna do. Fire isn't evil. Yeah, I didn't say fire was evil. But should I never fight fire? Well, that's on you. Your problem, none of your problems come from something else being fire. Okay, whatever you say, buddy. You know, that's what I mean. It's just like, and I don't know. I'm nitpicking here, right? Just let a meme be a meme. Let the I don't know. I have to nitpick things. That's what I do. When I hear something, I go, is that solid? Is that true? Or are there exceptions to that? Or is that just something to say? And why do I do that? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a jackass. But for me, it's important. It's important to acknowledge that money has power, guns have power, that you need power, that you can't let somebody else have all the power. You know? You can't just let evil go unchecked. I always say nature mitigates. But that isn't to say that you just take a nap and let nature do what it wants. You are nature. You're part of it. You're part of the mitigating factor. You are part of the pendulum. You can't just wait for the pendulum to swing. You are part of the pendulum, whether you like it or not. Your action or inaction affects the pendulum. You know? I don't vote. Voting doesn't matter. It's a valid thing to say, and especially in a corrupt system. But that's not where it stops. Voting doesn't matter. Okay, great. What does matter? Action. Well, what kind of action? Dealing with evil people. Okay, who are evil? What's evil? Why? You know, you gotta acknowledge the game that's being played. Otherwise, you're just kind of, I don't know, putting out little slogans, memes. Memes are cool. I like it. But the truer the meme is, the more I like it. You know? And it's simply not true that none of my problems are because somebody else is a billionaire. A lot of my problems are because Bill Gates is a billionaire. If Bill Gates is penniless, Bill Gates doesn't do Event 201, and the COVID lockdowns never happen. You know? Maybe none of my problems happen because Warren Buffett's a billionaire. I don't know. But Warren Buffett gave a bunch of money to Bill Gates. It's certainly, you know, it's a fun thing to say. None of your problems are because somebody else is a billionaire. It's a fun thing to say when it's not your problem. But if Bill Gates is, let's say he wants my piece of farmland and I don't want to sell it, but he buys all the farmland around me, and then he buys the town council, the city council, the county commissioner, he buys them off, and they pass laws and they start, you know, saying, oh, well, you've got a fine here because you didn't water this thing, or you didn't do this. You got this little animal on your farm, or you got to do this. And then they coerce and they pressure you and they lawfare you into a corner because of Bill Gates's actions and his money, and then you're forced into a litigation, and you can't even attend to the duties on your farm, because you got to go to court and fight this shit, and your anxiety raises, and you can't sleep at night, and that makes it harder to wake up in the morning and milk the goddamn cows. They keep pinning things onto your door. And Bill Gates buys some votes, and suddenly there's this eminent domain because they go, look, it's in our community's best interest if you sell your land to Bill Gates, because he's not going to buy any of our land if you hold out. You're driving our prices down. You think about putting a shotgun in your mouth and blowing your head off because you don't know what you're going to do without your farm, because you haven't done anything else. You've always been about farming. But Bill Gates wants your land, because he wants to grow some fake meat. None of your problems are because someone else is a billionaire. False. False. Maybe not your problem, but my problem. Some of my problems are because someone else is a billionaire. How do you reason in that scenario I just gave? Just sell it. Just sell it? That's the way out of the problem? That's, it's dumb. It doesn't acknowledge reality. And reality needs to be dealt with. If we always just push reality away and retreat into a fantasy, you can do that for 75 years and die, I suppose. That's one way to live. But to me, it almost does the opposite of what it purports to do. Like in this exchange with my friend, he said, yeah, but Merkley, a lot of these things you're saying perpetrates and sows victim culture. And I was like, how? How does acknowledging reality, how does acknowledging that people can be victims, there are such things, reality is there are victims and perpetrators. Does that sow victim culture by acknowledging that victims exist? No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. It tells people how to deal with their victimhood when they are victims. When you are a victim, when somebody sucker punches you or steals from you, drains your bank account, whatever, makes you a victim, do you stay a victim forever? What do you do? What do you do? Blame it all on yourself? I'm not a victim. I should have, ignore that it happened, get back to work. Who cares? Okay. That's fine. But what about going after the perpetrator? What about focusing on that? Not becoming obsessed with it, but, focusing on it and going, you're not going to get away with this. What about that phrase? You aren't going to get away with this. Oh, what? None of your problems are because somebody else got away with something. Yeah, you can't let people get away with stuff. If a bad person is doing something bad and you know about it, turning a blind eye to it doesn't make it go away. It just shifts that burden to somebody else. Somebody else will deal with it. That's not bravery. It's not bravery at all. It's cowardice. It's cowardice. When you take it upon yourself to be part of the solution, that's bravery. But there's nothing to solve because none of your problems really exist. It's all just a mental thing. All of your problems are the way you behave in life. The reason why you are robbed is because you slouch. If you stop slouching, you will not be robbed. If you start carrying a gun, you will not be robbed. If you install eyes on the back of your head, you will not be robbed. These are all great motivational things. You should install eyeballs on the back of your head. By all means, sign up tomorrow. But until then, you've got to acknowledge reality. That's fundamental. Fundamental is being in tune with reality, getting out of your head, out of the imaginary, where you can you can imagine away any evil, you know? You can imagine that the evil is somebody else or something else and not your problem. Or I can say, there's a pile of dirt in my backyard that I need to be flat, and I have a shovel, and one scoop at a time, I can flatten it, you know? Anyway, I'm rambling. Do it yourself. You're in charge. Acknowledge reality. Be present. I'm a fucking hippie. Thanks for listening.